Power 60. Welcome to Tea With Me Tuesday. My tea's probably cold by now. This is my teacup of the week. Usually when I have a teacup on Tuesday, I usually use the same cup all week. It's cold, it's cold. Look, I'll have to go warm it up. But before I do, I'll let you know that this is, hope that will come out. Look at my nails, oh my God, my grandsons and I were having fun. Anyway, it's Royal Albert and it's Dimity Rose, and my grandmother loved these, and she got the set of everything: coffee pot, teapot, gravy ladles, sugar, and 12 of everything. So we have them all. Excuse my hair. I just washed and let it go today because my grandsons came over pretty early. Hang on, I'm gonna go warm up my tea. I found this. Now I've had it for years. I've had it for at least 3 years that I can remember. And I never used it. I didn't really know until today. I didn't really know what to do with it. And because it says my life journal, you know what? I decided that I was going to start writing in it. And I was telling my daughter last week we had to go out and get my brother's and my sister-in-law's car. They're in Mexico, and I had to go get it from the garage and bring it to their house. So my daughter came and helped me, and we were chatting, and I happened to mention a few things that Mom had done, comical things, and you know, we're talking about how she's developing and or not, and all of that stuff. And we decided, you know, I just wanted to share with her. So my daughter says, you know, Mom, you should really write this. Now she knows I love to write. And that's usually my way of expressing myself, my way of getting feelings out, my way of detoxifying my thoughts and I had been doing this for years. I've been writing for years. Sometimes I write real stories, and sometimes I just write in my journal. I have a journal that I've been writing in. We used to call them diaries when we were young. Anyway, I'm going to see if I can set this back. Oh, I gotta sit back. Anyway. So my daughter and I were talking, and I was telling her about some of the things that Mom has done, and we both giggled. Because of the way I tell my daughter, I always say, you know, you'll never guess what I found, or you never guess what I saw, or you never guess what and then I would give her options. I would say, well, no, it wasn't that, and it wasn't that. And then I'd pause and I'd say, it was this. And she would burst out laughing. And, you know, that's the whole idea, is to see the soft and comical side of our elders as they get older, and not to be angry with them for not being who they were. So I decided to start writing in this journal, in my life journal. My back is killing me. I've been doing so many crafts. I think my chair is too high. Anyway, so today I thought I would just read you part of a very personal journal of mine, and I hope you don't mind. And if I find it doesn't turn out well, I will just delete this video. That's easy enough to do. So I've dated it at 2019. It was unexpected to have my mother move in with me. She had fallen and could no longer care for her common-law husband, who himself had Alzheimer's. Mom was about 84, I think. Could have been 83. I kind of lose track of time sometimes. It was difficult. It was a very difficult transition for both of us. I lived alone happily and independently for 30 years, a quiet and busy life. But in time, she got used to me and I got used to her. At this stage in her life, it wasn't getting to know my mother again, because that woman was disappearing in the fog of dementia. I got to know her likes and her dislikes, and I got to know myself. And to be honest, I didn't really like myself for the first 2 years. I didn't realize how difficult it was to live with someone you used to call Mummy, who was now a stranger with blood ties. A stranger with blood ties. I think the expectations of caring for an elderly's forgetfulness. Oh my God, what have I said here? I think the expectations of caring for an elderly, forgetful woman who was your mother is quite different than caring for a stranger, although in some ways she was becoming a stranger. You don't care, you don't carry any baggage with a stranger. No hidden hurts, no unresolved issues, no disappointments. The guilt that I felt in the first few months of not really knowing this woman, who was Mummy. But with a little professional help, I was able to resolve those. I was able to dissolve, not resolve. I was able to dissolve those unresolved feelings and learn to love my mom again, my mother again. It was hard not sharing losses of family members when she didn't know who they were or couldn't remember who they were. After a time, I learned to love this woman again. Love in a different way. Not so much as my mother, but as a struggling human being who made me laugh and cry at the same time. Who would remember stories of her youth and each time tell it a little differently. This woman who now asks the same questions 5 or 6 times in a matter of minutes. If I told her we would be going out at 2 p.m. and it was 9 a.m., I was sure she would ask over and over and over, what time are we going out? What time are we going out? In the early days, I would answer her 2, 3, 4 times. Then I found a solution. If I tell her we're going out in 45 minutes, she understands and starts to get ready, or she makes plans to get ready. She watches me get ready. And very rarely will I hear her say, what time are we going out? If I give it a frame of 15 minutes, 20 minutes, as soon as you're ready, we're going to go out. But I could no longer give her a time of day. Time on a clock or days on a calendar were meaningless now. Totally meaningless. On this page here, as I turned it over, it was really funny when I was looking for the dish detergent, which was usually beside the sink. I made it a habit of keeping empty bottles and filling them maybe a third or half full, and then adding water to make them about half full, and then put the other jar underneath the sink. That way, if it accidentally gets thrown out, gets whatever, it wouldn't matter. So one day I was looking at all the cupboards, under the sink, in the pantry cabinet. I got so used to finding things in odd places. Not in odd places, but, you know, unusual places. Anyway, so I assumed it had gotten thrown out and continued to make myself a cup of tea. I opened the fridge door to get my milk, and there it was, the bottle of detergent. I just smiled, and with a bit of a tear in my eye, I put it back on the sink. So I thought maybe I would read a few of these things every once in a while to help people understand I look back on my life and I wonder if I really ever knew my mom. I was raised in a loving home. There was no abuse. We were spoiled rotten. We didn't have to do chores because my grandmother lived with us. And very little things we had to do. We never really had to do anything. But my grandmother got me to help her baking and so on because Mom worked. Mom used to go to work at 6 in the morning. So it was always my grandmother or my father that would send us off to school. But my grandmother's the one who got us up in the morning, made us breakfast. She made everybody breakfast. I was very young when she moved in. I must have been about 7 or 8, I guess, when she moved in with us. Well, her and her husband, he was dying and he passed away, my grandfather. And Mom always worked. And it's funny, I knew my grandmother's personality very well. I knew what she would hide. As a child, I could see the hurt in her eyes when she'd be watching a TV show that she really enjoyed. And my father would come home from work and just flip the channel to something he wanted to watch, not even realizing he hurt. And I remember saying something like, "Granny, weren't you watching that?" She would get up, wouldn't say a word. She said, no, it doesn't matter. I can see it anytime. And she'd go in her room. My grandmother was an avid reader. She loved to read crime mysteries. She loved to read dramas and things like that. I remember she used to go in her room a lot and read and read. She loved to read. Maybe that's why I love to read today. And she always kept the hurt, but I knew my grandmother. I knew her as a woman. I knew her touch, her hugs, her holds. I knew all of those things about my grandmother, but I don't remember them about my mom. And I never thought about it, realized it, anything. Never through my whole life really reflected on it, resented it. There were a few things, of course, that I did. There were things, unresolved feelings, but I knew my grandmother's feelings and hugs and kisses more than I did my mom's. And I didn't realize it until my mom moved in with me. And I started looking after her because I always knew my mom to be a very strong woman. Businesslike, I guess. She was a supervisor. She had to be firm. She had to be strong. I knew she loved us. I mean, I knew she loved us. But I don't remember those tender she never had it as a child. So how would she be able to give it to me? So there was a lot of things that I had to work through the first year or two that Mom was with me. I had to work through. She was fine. It was me. I had to work through these issues. And I think that God has given me this lesson to wake me up, to resolve issues, even at my old age. Even at my age, there are still things that I need as a person, as a spirit, as a child of God. I need to experience certain things, and this was one of them. Getting to know my mother, who is not really my mother. Getting to know this woman who gave me everything, who spoiled us rotten, who loved us, who fed us, who worked hard, who had to deal with a lot of personal issues in her life, you know, marriage issues, and having your mother-in-law live with you, and not really having a one-on-one marriage with my father, which I knew about, but, you know, you don't really, it's your mom, you don't really think about it as your dad, but, you know, they were young ones, and she wanted to have a home and her children and the house the way she wanted it, and, you know, she never had that. She never had that because my grandmother lived with them, and my grandmother cooked, and my grandmother, in her own heart, this was my dad's mom, in her own heart, the cooking and the cleaning and the looking after and making sure everything was okay for my mom was her way of showing love. But my grandmother was more affectionate. My grandmother was more huggy and loving and vocal about her love. My mom and my mom's mom were not like that. They weren't as vocal. They weren't as touchy-feely because they weren't taught, because they didn't know. So I'm going to leave you this week with something that I have discovered, and I've rediscovered this woman who needs me as much as I need her, and that I love her very, very much, and I understand the life that she had, and that we were very lucky to have such a strong woman. She taught me to be a strong woman. She taught me to be able to look after myself when I'm alone. She taught me those things, and those things are absolutely priceless. So now I'm getting to smile with my mom as she goes through these silly things, and I'm going to be writing them down because they are comical, and she does do sneaky things, and I have to write them down just to remember, so that when she's no longer with us, or I'm no longer, someone can look at this book and say, she was a funny woman. And she does have a lot of love in her heart. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining me. This was a bit longer than I expected. Every Tuesday is always too long. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you don't mind me sharing my life journal. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.